Armon Qureshi never expected anything unusual to happen on a calm night shift. He was used to silence, blinking screens, and the steady hum of machines at the International Deep Space Listening Station where he worked. His job was simple most days: monitor signals coming from the universe, filter out random noise, and record anything that looked interesting. But most of the time, the universe was quiet. Sometimes he joked with his co-workers that space was like a sleeping giant, massive, mysterious, and silent. That night seemed no different. The station was dim. The overhead lights kept low to make the screens easier to read. It was past midnight, and only 3 people were on duty: Armon, a senior technician named Rehan, and a security guard who spent most of his time pacing slowly near the entrance. Outside, the air was cold, and the wind made a soft whistling sound against the metal walls of the building. Armon sat at his chair with a warm cup of tea and watched the lines on his monitor rise and fall gently. Everything was normal, and he assumed the shift would pass quietly. But at 1:37 a.m. the screen suddenly flashed. The signal graph jumped sharply, not like random space noise, but with a clear pattern: to clean, to precise. Armon blinked, leaned closer, and pressed a few keys to zoom in. The lines repeated in a timed rhythm, something he had never seen before. His first thought was that the system had malfunctioned. Maybe a cable had loosened or a satellite relay glitched. He tapped the side of the monitor, then checked the connection panel under his desk. Everything was normal. He rubbed his eyes and looked again. The pattern was still there, repeating exactly the same way every few seconds. His heart beat a little faster. He called out to Rehan, trying to keep his voice calm, even though curiosity had already started to rise in him like a wave. "Rehan bhai, can you look at this for a moment?" Rehan, who had been reading an old magazine, pushed his chair back with a sigh and walked over. He glanced at the screen and frowned, the tiredness in his face disappearing. "You did not adjust any of the filters?" he asked. "No," Armon replied quickly. "This just appeared." Rehan leaned in closer, his eyebrows pulling tightly together as he watched the pattern repeat again. "Run a frequency sweep," he said. Armon nodded and typed the command. The machine scanned across multiple channels, but the pattern held strong. It wasn't coming from Earth. It wasn't coming from any known satellite, probe, or aircraft. It was coming from deep space. Rehan's voice dropped into a slower, more serious tone. "This is not random. Someone is sending this." Armon swallowed hard. The feeling in the room changed instantly. The security guard, curious about the sudden silence, stepped closer but stayed by the door. He knew he wasn't supposed to interfere in technical matters, so he simply watched. Armon felt his palms grow slightly sweaty as he continued analyzing the signal. He adjusted the waveform, converted it to audio, and played it softly through the speaker. A faint, sharp series of pulses echoed through the room. Not music, not static, not anything accidental. It sounded like a distress pulse, urgent, steady, intentional. "This is an SOS pattern," Armon said softly, barely believing the words himself. Rehan's head whipped toward him. "You're sure?" Armon nodded slowly. "At least, it has the same rhythm as SOS codes." They both stared at the screen in silence. For years, governments around the world had invested in listening posts like this one, hoping to catch something unusual, a new discovery, a strange cosmic event, or maybe, one day, a message. But no one believed they would actually detect anything real. Scientists sometimes joked that the only signals they received were old satellite reflections and faulty electrical pulses. But this was different. After a moment, Rehan straightened up. "We need to alert Dr. Samina," he said, referring to the station's director. "Immediately." Armon nodded again and opened the internal communication line. His fingers trembled slightly. He wasn't scared, not yet, but he felt the weight of the moment pressing on him, like the air in the room had thickened. Dr. Samina arrived within 10 minutes, still half asleep, hair tied in a loose bun, a sweater pulled over her night clothes. Behind her came 2 analysts and a government liaison officer, who always seemed to be around whenever something sensitive happened. They gathered around Armon's station, watching the repeating signal. Dr. Samina listened with a serious expression, her eyes sharp even in her tired state. When the audio pulses played again, she exchanged a glance with the liaison officer. "To begin full verification protocols," she instructed. "We need to make sure this is not interference, not a malfunction, and not a false alarm." Hours went by as Armon and the team ran every test they could think of. They checked system logs, cross-checked coordinates, compared global listening posts, and confirmed that the signal did not match any recorded pattern from human technology. The data was clean. To clean, it came from a direction where no human spacecraft had ever traveled. When Armon thought about the size of space, about the billions of stars and planets in the endless dark, he felt a strange mix of excitement and fear. Someone out there, somewhere far beyond their reach, had sent a call for help. The thought was almost unbelievable. Rehan whispered at one point, "If this is real, history will remember tonight." Armon didn't reply, but his heart agreed. As the night went on, more officials arrived quietly. Government vehicles rolled up outside, lights off, to avoid drawing attention. The security guard at the door became alert, standing straighter, sensing that something major was unfolding. At 4:23 a.m., the final verification test finished. The signal was real. It repeated with precision. It was still active, and it carried a pattern unmistakably similar to distress calls used by humans. The room fell completely silent. No one knew exactly what to say. Finally, the government liaison officer cleared his throat. "This information stays classified," he said firmly, looking directly at Armin and Rihan. "No one outside this room hears anything until further orders." Armin nodded, but inside, curiosity burned hotter than ever. He wanted to know who was calling for help, and why, and how something so far away could send a message that reached Earth so clearly. Dr. Samina asked Armin to replay the decoded sequence again. They listened as the pulses filled the room, stronger now after filtering and amplification. The sound felt almost like a heartbeat, fast, panicked, desperate. "Someone is in trouble," Armin whispered without meaning to. The words slipped out from pure instinct. The government officer glanced at him, not harshly, but with a calculating look, as if evaluating whether Armin had realized too much too fast. But the truth was simple. Armin had been the first person on Earth to see the signal, the first to recognize its rhythm, the first to understand that this was not just another night shift. Something far bigger had begun. Armin felt a strange connection to the message, even though he couldn't explain why. Maybe because he had been alone when it first appeared, maybe because he understood its structure better than anyone else, or maybe because he felt the fear hidden inside those pulses. The team began mapping the origin of the signal. They used long-range sensors, old star charts, and advanced algorithms to trace its point of entry. Armin watched carefully as lines and coordinates formed on the screen. When the final point appeared, everyone leaned forward. It wasn't from any known human space mission. It wasn't from any nearby star. It came from a region far beyond where human technology had ever reached. A cold feeling crawled slowly through Armin's chest. This wasn't a random cosmic event. Someone had deliberately sent a message toward Earth, and they must have known Earth could hear it. Suddenly, everything felt heavy. The quiet listening station, once so peaceful, now felt like the center of the world. Every sound, the beeping machines, the clicking keyboards, the low hum of electricity felt louder, like the walls themselves were aware of the moment. Armin looked at Rehan, then at Dr. Samina, then back at the blinking signal. A simple question echoed loudly in his mind. Why Earth? Why now? But at that moment, no one had answers. Only questions. Only possibilities. And only the quiet, continuous pulse of the distress signal, repeating again and again, as if begging Earth not to ignore it. Hours passed, and by sunrise, the station had become a restricted zone. More officials arrived. The hallways filled with hushed voices and rushing footsteps. Armin felt both important and invisible. He was needed, yet he was kept at a distance from the bigger discussions. Still, they could not push him aside completely. He was the only one who had watched the entire signal from the beginning. Whenever a new analyst arrived, they asked him to explain his first observation. Each time he repeated the story, he felt the weight of it grow heavier. The officials argued among themselves in low voices. Some believed the signal might be natural but rare. Others argued that the pattern was too intelligent. One person suggested it could be a trap. Another suggested it might be a relic from an old forgotten mission. But no matter how many theories they discussed, the feeling in the room remained the same. Something extraordinary had happened. And it had happened on Armin's shift. As morning light crept through the windows, Dr. Samina placed a hand on Armin's shoulder. Her voice softened. "Whatever this is," she said, "you did the right thing by reporting it immediately. The world will remember this signal, even if the people don't know about it yet." Armin nodded, though he wasn't sure if he felt proud or overwhelmed. All he knew was that the universe had spoken for the first time in his life. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was a quiet SOS, a call for help, a whisper from the darkness. And somehow, out of all the people on Earth, Armin Qureshi had been the first to hear it. That thought stayed with him long after he left the station that morning, long after the sun rose, long after the signal continued to pulse steadily through the machines behind him. Something had awakened, and he felt it deep inside, even if he didn't understand it yet. The world was about to change, and this was only the beginning. The hours after the signal was confirmed felt heavier than anything Armin Qureshi had ever experienced. The station that usually stayed quiet and almost forgotten had now become a center of activity. People who normally never stepped foot inside the monitoring room were suddenly rushing around with laptops, papers, and tense expressions. It was still early morning, but no one felt sleepy anymore. The strange signal from deep space had shaken everyone awake. Armin stood near his workstation while analysts, scientists, and government officials surrounded him. Every time someone new entered, they asked to see the waveform, the audio pattern, or the raw data, and every time Armin replayed it, he felt the same cold shiver. The pulses were too clean, too sharp, too perfectly timed. It wasn't nature. It wasn't an accident. Someone had meant for this message to be heard. As more experts studied the signal, new layers of information started to reveal themselves. One analyst named Fazana pointed out something Armin had missed earlier. The repeating pulses weren't just SOS patterns. There were tiny fluctuations in the gaps between them, something hidden, something coded. It's like someone placed a message inside the spaces, Farzana explained, her voice trembling with excitement. Everyone leaned closer to the screen. Armon felt his heart speed up. The idea that there might be more inside the signal made everything feel even more serious. Decoding began immediately. The computers worked non-stop, running algorithms and translations. The patterns were strange. Some looked mathematical, others looked almost like coordinates. When the first line of decoded data appeared, a hush fell over the room. The coordinates didn't point to anywhere familiar. They were far outside Earth's ordinary observation routes. In a region of space the listening station rarely monitored because it was too far, too empty, and believed to be too quiet. Yet the signal came from there, clear and strong. How can something so far send a message that reaches Earth with this much clarity? Someone whispered. Armand wondered the same thing. He had spent years studying signals, and nothing had ever looked like this. It felt almost impossible, like a voice calling from a place where no one should exist. As the decoding continued, more lines of hidden information appeared. One line showed pulse disruptions at certain intervals. Another showed a fragmented sentence-like pattern that resembled an old communication structure. It seemed like a warning, though no one could translate it fully. A military communications specialist named Colonel Naveed arrived shortly after. His presence changed the atmosphere. He stood tall, shoulders squared, wearing a serious expression that told everyone he was not here to observe it, was here to take control. He listened to the team's explanation, watched the signal playback, and then said in a firm tone, "We must assume this is a distress call of high importance. If someone is calling for help, we need to know who, why, and what danger they are facing." Armand noticed the way the colonel's eyes narrowed when he saw the hidden warning pattern. He had seen enough classified work to recognize that expression. It was the look of someone who felt a threat, but just as important as the warning was something else. Fear. Not fear from the colonel, but fear inside the signal itself. Armand could feel it as he studied the pulses. There was something desperate about them, like someone crying out with their last strength. Meanwhile, Dr. Samina tried to keep the room organized. She instructed the decoding team to analyze every layer of the message, told the government liaison to update the central command, and reminded everyone to stay calm. But calmness was becoming harder to maintain with each passing minute. The decoding team soon discovered something strange. The signal strength changed in a specific pattern every few minutes, almost like someone was repeating the message manually. It wasn't an automated beacon. It felt like a human touch, someone pressing a button again and again, hoping someone somewhere would hear. Farzana looked up from her screen and said softly, "Whoever sent this, they're still alive." The words sent chills through the room. Armand felt his breath catch. Even Colonel Nevade paused for a moment. If the sender was alive, then the urgency of the message became even more real. Hours passed. The station that once felt cold and mechanical now felt warm with tension, fear, and curiosity. Coffee cups were scattered across tables, chairs pushed aside, wires stretching from computer to computer. Every person in the room had the same expression, a mixture of shock and determination. Around noon, something big happened. One of the analysts shouted, "I got the second layer of translation." Everyone rushed over. On the screen, fragmented words began to appear, not perfect sentences, but broken pieces that gave a clear idea. "Help, not save, danger incoming. We cannot survive." Armand felt his stomach tighten. The words were simple, but the meaning was terrifying. Whoever sent the message was in serious trouble. They were running out of time. They were calling Earth, not because Earth was close, but because Earth was their last hope. But why Earth? That question bothered him more than anything else. Other planets, other places. Why aim a distress message directly at Earth? Armand kept replaying the thought in his mind. Could it be that whoever sent the signal knew Earth was listening? Could they know Earth had the technology to detect such messages? Could they have expected humans to help? For a moment, Armand thought about how small humans really were in the universe. Tiny creatures on a small planet, believing they were alone. Yet here was a message coming from the far reaches of space, calling specifically to them. It felt strange, almost unbelievable. Then something unexpected happened. Another hidden pattern emerged. This one looked like a timeline, pulses arranged in sequences representing intervals. The analyst studied it carefully, then turned pale. "It's a countdown." One whispered. The room froze. A countdown meant one thing: time was running out, but no one knew what the countdown referred to. Was it the sender's remaining time? The arrival of something dangerous? The time before disaster struck? The unknown made everything worse. Colonel Naveed looked at the numbers, then quietly said, "If this message is real, if this countdown is accurate, then we need to prepare for the worst." Within minutes, he made a phone call that changed everything. Soon after, a high-level meeting was scheduled. Representatives from various sectors, military, science, intelligence, arrived in black cars and entered the station through the back entrance to avoid attention. No one smiled. No one joked. Every person carried the weight of responsibility on their shoulders. Armand was not part of these meetings. He watched from outside as powerful people walked into the conference room with files, laptops, and serious expressions. He wished he could hear what they were saying. He wished he could understand the full importance of the message. But every time he looked at the signal, he felt certain of one thing. This was no small issue. This was something that could affect the entire world. He walked back to his desk and listened to the pulses once more. They felt almost alive, fast, trembling, urgent. He imagined someone far away pressing a transmitter, terrified, hoping that the message would find anyone who could help. A strange sadness washed over him. He didn't know who the sender was, but he felt connected to them. He felt their fear, their desperation at one point. Rayhan sat beside him and whispered, "Do you ever think about the person behind this, what they might be feeling right now?" Arman nodded slowly. "Yes, every time I listen to it," Rayhan sighed. "It must be terrible being so far from home and knowing danger is coming." The idea stuck in Arman's mind. Danger was coming. Someone far away knew this. They had sent a warning, but as the day went on, the meetings continued behind closed doors. Officials spoke urgently. Scientists argued. Military officers whispered. No one outside the conference room knew exactly what decisions were being discussed in the evening. Dr. Samina finally called Arman in. He felt nervous as he walked into the room. The table was covered with documents, and a large screen displayed the decoded data. Colonel Navaid looked at him and said, "We need your help again. You were the first to detect the signal. You understand its structure better than anyone else here. We need you to assist with deeper analysis." Arman's throat felt dry. "Of course," he said quietly. The colonel nodded. "Good, because we believe this message is not just a call for help. It is also a warning." Arman felt his heart drop. A warning about what? The colonel exchanged glances with the others. Then he leaned forward. "There is something out there," he said slowly. "Something hostile. And according to this message, it is coming." Arman forgot to breathe for a moment. He stared at the decoded fragments on the screen. The countdown, the distress patterns, the warnings hidden inside the pulses. He understood now why everyone looked so afraid. This wasn't only about saving someone. This wasn't only about responding to an SOS. This was about Earth itself. Earth had been warned. The message was not just a cry of fear. It was a desperate attempt to alert the home planet of something bigger, something unseen, something dangerous. And suddenly, Armand understood something even more frightening. The universe was not silent. It had never been silent. Earth simply hadn't been listening to the right places. Until now. That night, as he sat alone with the blinking signal still repeating on his screen, Arman realized that everything had changed forever. The peaceful quiet of the universe had been broken, and the world had just received a message that would wake forces long forgotten. He could feel it in his bones. Something was coming, and this was only the beginning. The discovery of the strange SOS message had already shaken everyone inside the deep space listening station. But what happened afterward was something Arman Qureshi never imagined in his life. The secret meetings, the frightened expressions, and the decoded warnings had pushed the situation far beyond a normal scientific discovery. It was no longer about a strange signal. It had become a matter of danger, urgency, and decisions bigger than Arman's understanding. Part 3 began for him on the second night, when he was called back to the station even though his shift was supposed to be over. He had barely slept. His mind kept replaying the decoded words: danger incoming, cannot survive, countdown. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone far away, someone human or something close to human, was begging Earth to do something. When he reached the station, security was far tighter than before. Soldiers stood at the gates. Cameras had been installed in places where they had never been before. The guard who usually greeted him with a smile didn't even raise his head. He simply checked Arman's ID and waved him in silently. Inside, the atmosphere felt heavier. People moved quickly, quietly, as if every second mattered. Dr. Samina met him near the entrance and guided him down the hallway. Her face was calm, but her eyes looked tired and tense, like someone who had seen something she didn't want to believe but had no choice. "We need you in the main control room," she said. "There is something you should hear." When Arman entered the room, he saw a group of people gathered around the central table. Some he recognized: Farzana Rehan and a few analysts. Others were strangers: military officers, older scientists and engineers who seemed to carry an air of authority. Colonel Navaid stood at the head of the table. When Arman stepped inside, the colonel gestured for him to come closer. On the screen behind him was a file labeled Project War Titans. Arman frowned. He had never heard of it before. The colonel noticed his confusion and spoke in a slow, serious tone. "What you are about to hear is classified. Very few people on Earth know about these programs. They were created many years ago, during a time when global tensions were high. Governments feared unknown threats from space, from enemies, from the unknown. But when the world changed and peace agreements were made, these programs were shut down." He paused, his eyes scanning everyone in the room. They were never destroyed, only locked away. Arman felt a strange feeling wash over him. He couldn't understand why the colonel was telling him all this. What did these old programs have to do with the signal? The colonel continued. "After analyzing the SOS, the warnings and the countdown, we realized something. Earth is not prepared for what may be coming. Our current defense systems are too slow, too weak, and too outdated to respond to a threat from outside our planet. but decades ago. Some of the world's greatest engineers and scientists built something extraordinary: massive defense platforms, powerful machines, and technology far ahead of their time. He pointed at the screen. We called them the War Titans. Armin stared at the image that appeared. It showed giant machines, some like enormous spacecraft, others like floating fortresses, some like deep-sea armored structures that could rise from underwater. They looked like something from a science fiction movie, except the details were too real, too technical. Farzana leaned close to Armin and whispered, These were real. Armin nodded, but he wasn't sure if he actually believed it. The colonel explained that these titans were built during a time when humanity feared unknown threats: alien contact, enemy superweapons, even cosmic dangers. These machines were designed not just to fight wars on Earth, but to protect Earth from anything beyond it. But they were too expensive to maintain, too massive to move, and too dangerous to leave active. So they were shut down slowly, quietly, and hidden around the world in secret locations buried under mountains, sunk deep under oceans, or locked inside underground hangars. Until now, the colonel said, we believed we would never need them again. But this message has changed everything. The room fell silent. Armin felt goosebumps rise on his arms. The idea that such machines existed was already shocking, but knowing they were being reactivated because of a warning from deep space made everything feel unreal. One of the older engineers, a man with gray hair and tired eyes, spoke in a soft voice. We have begun recalling specialists who worked on these machines many years ago. Some are retired, some left the field, some swore to take their secrets to the grave, but we need them now. Only they know how to bring these titans back to life. Another engineer added, the reactivation will take time, and time is the one thing we don't have. Armin took a deep breath. He felt small and unimportant compared to everything happening around him. Why was he even here? He was just a communications technician. He didn't build machines. He didn't fight wars. He didn't work on secret projects. Then Colonel Nevade turned to him. You may not realize this, Armin, but you play an important role in this operation. Armin blinked me. But I'm not you, the colonel interrupted firmly. We're the first to understand the structure of the message. You identified the pattern faster than our machines. And now, we need your help again. Dr. Samina nodded. The message continues. The signal has more layers, and there are patterns we cannot decode without understanding how the first part was detected. The colonel stepped closer. You might be the key to unlocking the final part of the warning. Armin felt his throat tighten. He had never been important in any big operation in his life. He had never been part of something that could affect the entire planet. He looked around at the faces in the room, some hopeful, some scared, some determined, and realized that whether he liked it or not, he had become part of something much bigger. They asked him to sit at his workstation and begin analyzing the newly received signal packets. More data had arrived overnight, broken pieces of the SOS that the listening station's computers had caught automatically. When Armin saw the new patterns, he felt that familiar shiver again. These pulses were different from the earlier ones. They were less stable, more irregular, almost like someone sending them under panic or exhaustion. He adjusted filters, corrected distortions, and aligned the wave. Slowly, the shapes became clearer, and then he saw something that made him freeze. Hidden inside the new sequence was a small shift, tiny but visible. It was a confirmation code, the same type humans used when sending long-range communication. Armin's voice trembled as he spoke. This message, this signal, it was sent by humans. The room exploded with whispers. Some people gasped. Others looked shocked. Colonel Navid straightened up. Are you absolutely certain? Armin nodded. The structure, the format, the confirmation code. It matches old human long-distance communication systems. Very old ones. The colonel exchanged a dark look with the others. Then there is no doubt. The source of the message is human. Armin felt a chill crawl slowly up his spine. Hundreds of questions filled his mind. How could humans be so far away? What happened to them? Why were they sending an SOS? How were they alive out there? And the biggest question, what danger were they facing? While the analysts tried to decode the remaining pieces, Colonel Nevade pulled up maps showing locations of the war titans. A buried titan under the Himalayan mountains. Another hidden beneath the Arctic waters. A massive orbital titan left dormant in space. And several more. Each titan looked terrifying and powerful, machines built for war but forgotten by time. The colonel explained that crews were being sent to awaken them. Massive doors buried in ice or stone were being opened after decades. Energy cores that had been cold for years were being reignited. Robots and engineers were clearing dust, rust, and broken parts. It was like waking giant beasts that had been sleeping for generations. Armin imagined those huge machines opening their eyes after decades, rising from the shadows, metal groaning, lights flickering, waiting for commands. Farzana whispered, "This feels like a prophecy coming true." Rihan added, "We are reawakening weapons we never wanted to use." The colonel nodded. "We are not preparing for war. We are preparing for survival." The decoded message repeated in Armin's mind, "Danger incoming." At that moment, the computers beeped. The final part of the new signal layer arrived. Armin filtered it quickly. When the pattern cleared, Everyone leaned in. The message said, "Earth, hurry." Armin stared at the words, feeling a cold fear inside his chest. Whoever sent the message was begging Earth to act fast. And now Earth had decided to awaken its old protectors, the War Titans. But as Armin listened to the faint pulses echoing softly in the room, he couldn't shake the feeling that awakening these Titans was only the beginning. Something worse was coming, something powerful enough to make Earth fear again. And deep inside, Armin knew the truth. The countdown was still ticking. The warning was still incomplete. And the danger that had reached the faraway humans might soon reach Earth too. The War Titans were waking, and the world was about to face something it had never faced before. The next few hours felt unreal for everyone on Earth. The alarm had gone off. The ancient Titans had awakened, and now the world watched as the impossible became reality. The arrival of the alien ship had shaken the planet, but the arrival of the Titans' massive war machines that should not have existed changed everything. People around the world gathered in front of screens, watching live broadcasts that tried to capture what was happening. But even the best cameras made the Titans look smaller than they really were. Standing next to them, humans looked like ants beside mountains. General Marcus Hale stood on the command deck of Titan 01, still trying to understand how something so huge could move so smoothly. Even after all the training simulations he had done, nothing compared to standing inside the real machine. The Titan responded to his thoughts, his body movements, and his voice, like a living extension of himself. He could feel its power humming through the metal frame. It was both terrifying and comforting at the same time. Across the world, 3 other Titans awakened as well. Titan 02 rose from beneath the Sahara, heat shimmering around its enormous metallic frame. Titan 03 emerged from a glacier in Antarctica, steam rising as its engines melted the ice. Titan 04 crawled out from the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, water falling off its armored body like a massive waterfall. Every nation was tense, every border on high alert, because no one truly knew what these machines were capable of. They had been built in secret, hidden for decades, created for a war that never came, or so everyone believed. Now they were awake, powered by Earth's most advanced technology, controlled by specially chosen operators. And they had awakened because Earth had received a message that no one could ignore anymore. As Titan 01 stepped forward, the ground vibrated, dust rose from the surface of the valley. Birds took off from trees in fear, scattering into the sky. The sound was not like the roar of a machine, but the slow, heavy beat of a metal heartbeat. It was the sound of awakening war power, ancient, unstoppable. Inside the Titan, Marcus received a new feed from Earth's orbital stations. The alien vessel was no longer drifting silently. It had begun sending out weak pulses of energy, each one carrying the same message, a plea for help. Whatever the aliens faced out there in the void, it was strong enough to break them, and they had come to Earth, of all places, searching for safety. But Earth was not prepared for guests, friendly or otherwise. Governments across the planet scrambled to figure out what to do. Some argued that the aliens might be dangerous. Others insisted that if an interstellar species came here for help, refusing them might bring problems far worse. For Marcus, things were simpler. He had his orders. The Titans were not built to negotiate. They were tools of war, created only to be used when Earth faced the kind of threat that could wipe out humanity. But the threat had not arrived yet. Only the warning had. Marcus stared at the images of the alien craft, still battered and weak. Then he looked at the feed from Titan 01's sensors, showing the surroundings of the landing site. Military camps had formed in a wide circle around the alien ship. Soldiers, vehicles, drones, heavy equipment, all pointed at the unknown, even without battles. The air felt like war. Marcus opened a channel to the other Titan operators. Their faces appeared on the holographic screen. Commander Lena Ruiz from Titan 02, Captain Darius Venn from Titan 03, and Chief Pilot Ren Tanaka from Titan 04. They all looked different from the last time they spoke. The weight of their responsibility had settled on them as well. They were not just pilots anymore, they were protectors of the planet. "We need to proceed carefully," Marcus said. "If they came here running from something, that something might be coming." Lena nodded. "They didn't travel across the galaxy for fun. They're afraid. And scared beings can get desperate," Ren added. "We need to secure the area before anything else." Darius leaned forward. "And what if whatever attacked them is following their trail right now?" No one answered. They all thought the same thing: Earth might be next. While the operators discussed strategy, scientists in laboratories across the world worked non-stop to decode the full alien message. Every second brought new fragments, new clues. The aliens were part of a peaceful federation, and they had sent an SOS when their planet was attacked by an unknown force, something fast, brutal and merciless, capable of destroying entire civilizations. The aliens had escaped with only one surviving ship. They had chosen Earth because old records suggested that humans were stronger than any species in their region of space. The scientists understood the message, the military understood it, the Titan operators understood it. Earth had not been chosen at random. It had been chosen because someone out there feared humans. Marcus found that thought disturbing. What had humans done in the past to earn that reputation? How did aliens know that Titans existed, or did they simply believe Earth was dangerous on its own? The more he thought about it, the more it troubled him. Humanity always saw itself as fragile compared to the universe. But maybe the universe saw humans differently. A sudden alarm echoed inside Titan 01, pulling Marcus from his thoughts. He glanced at the screen. The alien ship's outer hull was shifting. Panels slid open like petals, exposing cracks in the metal that glowed softly, that it was powering something. The military camp outside reacted instantly. Tanks pulled forward. Soldiers raised their weapons. Drones hovered closer. Fear spread like electricity. Marcus felt his heartbeat quickened. If the aliens fired something, Earth might have no choice but to respond. A misunderstanding could trigger a disaster. Hold your fire, Marcus said into the global channel. Nobody shoots unless they confirm a threat. But fear doesn't listen to orders. And whenever the unknown appears, humans always prepare for the worst. The alien ship released a burst of light. Soldiers screamed. Tanks adjusted their barrels. Drone warnings filled the air. Then the light stopped. A door opened on the alien craft, and a small platform extended outward. On it lay a figure, weak, shaking, and barely alive. The alien was thin, with pale skin and large dark eyes. It struggled to breathe Earth's air. It raised one trembling hand, not to attack, but to surrender. The sudden silence that followed was heavier than any war sound. Everyone realized the truth at the same time. The alien was not here to fight. It was here to beg. Marcus felt something shift inside him. The Titans were massive machines built for destruction. But in this moment, he realized their first mission was not to fight an enemy. It was to protect someone helpless. He stepped Titan 01 closer. The massive shadow of the machine covered the alien ship like a shield. Soldiers looked up in awe and fear. To them, it appeared as if a giant metal guardian had taken its position. Inside Titan 01, Marcus opened the external speakers and spoke calmly. His voice amplified through the giant machine. "We hear you. Earth will not harm you." The alien collapsed, relieved. The world watched this scene unfold live. News channels replayed the moment again and again, the towering Titan defending a fragile visitor from the stars. Social media exploded. People cried, argued, prayed, and questioned everything they once believed. War machines built for Earth's protection were now protecting someone else entirely. While Marcus handled the situation on the ground, the scientists finally decoded one final part of the alien message. It was a warning, not about what had attacked the aliens before, but about what was coming next. Coordinates, predictions, paths. Through space, something was approaching Earth, and it was moving fast. Marcus received the update moments later. The small holographic screen blinked red. He read the message twice, feeling a chill spread through him. Whatever had attacked the alien planet had already begun its journey toward Earth. He looked at the alien lying weakly on the platform. He looked at the Titan around him. He looked at the sky. Earth was no longer waiting for danger. It was coming. And the Titans were no longer just awakened. They were being called into action. Marcus tightened his grip on the controls. His voice was steady when he contacted the other operators. "Prepare your Titans. The enemy is on its way." There was no fear in his words, only determination. The sleeping Titans had awakened. Now they would rise. The more Armand Qureshi worked with the signals, the clearer the truth became. What had begun as a mysterious SOS now revealed a shocking reality. This was not an alien cry for help as everyone had initially believed. The fragments of the message, when pieced together carefully, showed something that stunned every analyst in the room. The SOS was human. It came from humans, but not from any planet or colony Earth knew existed. It came from a long-lost human colony, launched generations ago, drifting into deep space and entirely isolated from Earth. Armand felt a chill run down his spine as the revelation sank in. Humans had left Earth centuries ago, in hopes of creating new colonies on distant planets. Most of these missions were recorded as lost or failed, their crews assumed dead or disappeared. No one had expected that a group of descendants from one of these ancient ships would survive. And yet, here they were, sending a desperate SOS across the void, reaching Earth through faint coded pulses that only a sensitive listening station could catch. The colonel, standing at the edge of the room, ran his hand over his face, visibly trying to process the revelation. "So the message isn't a warning about an alien threat," he said slowly. "It's a call for help from our own people." Farzana whispered, almost to herself. "We have been chosen to rescue our own." Armand tried to imagine the situation of those humans drifting so far from home. Generations had lived aboard a ship they could never leave, seeing stars but never visiting a familiar world. Their parents, grandparents, and even the oldest records they could access were all from Earth, but Earth had become a distant memory, a planet of myths and legends. And now, after all those years, they were in danger, and Earth was the only place they could turn to. As the analysts continued decoding, the SOS revealed more details. Their colony ship had been attacked by a hostile species, something entirely unknown to Earth, something efficient and merciless. The attackers had destroyed resources, disabled navigation systems, and left the colony drifting without the ability to escape. The survivors had no weapons capable of defending themselves. They were begging, almost pleading, for Earth to respond, not because they expected humans to fight, but because they had nowhere else to turn. The Colonel called in the Titan operators immediately. Marcus, Lena, Darius, and Ren all listened intently as the decoded messages were relayed. Their eyes widened when they understood the gravity of the situation. The Titans were no longer being reactivated for defense alone. They were being prepared for a rescue mission. The engineering teams worked tirelessly to bring every Titan to full operational status. Power cores hummed back to life. Mechanical limbs moved smoothly for the first time in decades. And weapon systems that had been dormant for generations were tested but held in standby, only to be used if the rescue mission became combat. The world outside the secret bases remained largely unaware. Governments ensured that no panic spread, keeping the mission classified. Even while massive convoys of engineers, scientists, and Titan operators moved under heavy security, Armin watched the signals carefully, noting each pulse, each irregularity, knowing that time was running out. The Colonel instructed the team that every decoded message must be interpreted immediately. One missed pattern could mean disaster. As the day progressed, Earth's global fleet of Titans prepared to leave their hidden bases. Titan 01, under Marcus, had already cleared its launch protocols and was ready to move. Titan 02, Titan 03, and Titan 04 followed, emerging from secret locations around the world with careful coordination. The sight of these machines rising into operational readiness was awe-inspiring. Giant structures that had been dormant for decades, some even buried under ice or deep underwater, now moved purposefully. Their operators were tense, but the purpose gave them courage. Then, Armin discovered another crucial piece of information hidden in the SOS. The enemy force that had attacked the lost human colony was not stationary. It was moving. It was searching. It had noticed life and movement aboard the drifting colony ship. If the enemy detected Earth's response, they could follow, bringing the threat directly to the planet. The urgency became real. Earth could not delay. Every Titan now had a dual purpose: protect the planet and save the stranded humans. Scientists worked around the clock, monitoring the colony ship's location, calculating trajectories and coordinating with Titan operators. Every detail had to be precise. Any mistake could result in total loss of the human survivors. While the technical teams focused on logistics, Armin stayed glued to the SOS signals, detecting subtle hints about the state of the survivors. The pulses grew weaker as days passed. Power was running low on the colony ship. Food, water, and oxygen were scarce. Each moment of delay could cost lives. It was not a distant problem anymore, it was an emergency. The operators discussed strategy in hushed tones. Marcus suggested an approach that would use Titan 01's advanced mobility to reach the colony first, providing shielding for the other Titans to follow. Lena added that they would need to adjust Titan 02's systems to handle unknown environmental conditions around the colony. Darius calculated the safest trajectory from Antarctica to the remote coordinates transmitted by the SOS. Ren ensured that Titan 04's submersible abilities were ready, in case the colony ship had landed or crashed in water. Meanwhile, Armin continued decoding the signal, finding hidden sequences that suggested some of the colony's automated defense systems were still functional. They were weak, damaged, but still could react to the hostile species. This meant that Earth's Titans might encounter unexpected resistance from what should have been allies. The Colonel made a decisive announcement. "We do not wait. Titans launch in 1 hour. Earth will answer the call." Worldwide, under layers of secrecy, the Titans began mobilization. Massive hangars opened, crews checked systems, and engines roared to life. Giant Titans rose from their hiding places, their shadows stretching across mountains, deserts, oceans, and ice. Armin could feel the hum of their engines even through communication systems. The planet seemed to tremble in anticipation. In the control room, Armin watched the final signals come in. The messages from the colony were fragmented but desperate. They contained images, data transmissions showing parts of the colony's structure, indicators of damaged life support systems, and weak energy pulses begging for aid. Every image was a reminder of the lives at stake. No one in the room spoke much. They only watched, calculating, planning, and preparing. The operators felt the weight of history pressing down on them. Humanity was about to meet itself across the stars. The first Titan to leave its base did so with Marcus inside. The massive legs of Titan 01 moved with precision, the ground shaking beneath each step. As it left the base, engineers waved, some with tears in their eyes. This machine, created decades ago, was now carrying the hope of an entire species across unimaginable distances. Titan 02, Titan 03, and Titan 04 followed, their engines humming in sync. Worldwide, control teams coordinated through secure channels, monitoring every movement. The alien messages, now fully decoded, painted a picture of a colony that had survived through sheer determination and ingenuity. They had repaired parts of the ship, recycled resources, and adapted to the harsh environment of deep space, but they were still at the mercy of the unknown. Armin realized something extraordinary. These humans had survived generations without ever seeing Earth. They had lived, fought, and learned aboard a drifting ship in the cold darkness of space. And now, Earth's titans were rising to meet them not as a punishment, not as a war, but as a rescue force. For the first time, humanity was responding to its own past. The operators approached the coordinates slowly. Each titan moved with caution, aware that the enemy might be near. Every signal was analyzed, every reading monitored. The journey was tense and quiet, but inside the control rooms and aboard the titans, hearts raced. Then, far ahead, faint pulses appeared on the sensors. The SOS signals were growing weaker but more consistent. The survivors were alive, still calling out for help, but their energy levels suggested they might not last much longer. Marcus adjusted Titan 01's trajectory, guiding the massive machine as it moved across deserts, oceans, and mountains toward the distant coordinates. The other Titans followed, each moving in a calculated formation to provide protection and speed. Armin and the decoding team worked tirelessly, relaying updates, calculating new paths, and ensuring the Titans reached the survivors safely. It felt like guiding a giant chess game across a living planet. As the Titans approached the coordinates, they began to detect the colony ship. It was battered, broken, and drifting, but the survivors were still alive. Their automated systems blinked weakly, trying to stabilize the structure. Marcus felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. The hardest part was not over. Now they had to safely reach the humans and extract them, all while unknown dangers loomed in space. Sensors detected faint traces of the hostile species. They had not followed yet, but they were nearby, moving fast. Earth's Titans had to act carefully. The next moments would determine the fate of the colony and possibly the future of humanity's reputation across space. Marcus felt the hum of Titan 01 beneath him. It was more than metal, it was a living guardian, prepared to defend and rescue. As Titan 01 stepped closer to the colony ship, the others adjusted positions, ready to provide shielding, firepower if needed, and secure extraction points. The survivors, unaware of Earth's arrival until now, were amazed. Their SOS had been answered. After generations drifting in silence, help had come. Armin watched the signals as the first communications were established. Faint visual feeds showed the survivors' faces, tired, terrified, but alive. Messages of gratitude passed through the system. Earth had reached across the void, and its sleeping titans had risen to save humanity's own. But the danger had not vanished. The hostile species remained in pursuit, and the titans had to be ready for battle at any moment. The countdown Armin had seen earlier had not ended. Time was still critical. The rescue had begun, but Earth's response was only the beginning of what was coming. And deep inside, Armin knew the truth. The universe was watching, and humanity's actions in these next moments would shape its place in the cosmos forever. The Titans had reached the coordinates of the drifting human colony. For Marcus and the other operators, the sight was both astonishing and terrifying. The colony ship was immense, stretching longer than any building on Earth, but it was battered, scarred from attacks that had left gashes in its hull, and systems barely functional. Flickering lights marked where energy had been rerouted to keep life support alive, and a faint hum of machinery echoed through the empty corridors. Sensors showed pockets of survivors moving cautiously, trying to maintain their fragile environment. Armin, watching from the decoding room, could see every pulse of the SOS signal. Each flicker of energy from the colony reflected the humans' desperation. They had survived for generations drifting in deep space, and yet their strength was near its limit. As Titan 01 stepped closer, the ground beneath trembled slightly, not from impact, but from the sheer power radiating from the machine. Marcus had never felt anything like it. It was as if the Titan itself knew what it had to do. Its massive metal frame seemed alive, aware of the fragile humans nearby, ready to act as both protector and guide. The other Titans followed in formation, creating a protective perimeter around the colony. Titan 02 hovered above its sensors, scanning for any approaching threats. Titan 03 and Titan 04 positioned themselves strategically, preparing to respond to both air and sea threats. For the first time, the operators realized that they were part of something much bigger than any war game or simulation. They were now executing a real-life rescue mission that could decide the fate of humanity's own kind. Inside the colony, the survivors looked up as the Titans approached. They had seen many dangers in their long journey across space, but nothing like this. Huge machines rising above the horizon, moving with precision and intelligence, were both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Some of the older colonists whispered prayers, thanking the distant planet they called Earth. Children stared wide-eyed, unable to believe that help had come after centuries of drifting alone. The first connection was established through a secure communications link. Marcus spoke, his amplified voice reaching every corner of the colony. "We are here to help. Earth has heard your call. You are not alone anymore." The response was filled with emotion. A trembling voice replied, We never thought anyone would hear us. Thank you, thank you. *E operators could feel the weight of centuries in those words. Generations had lived without hope, and now they had it. The Titans began the extraction process carefully. Titan 01 extended massive mechanical arms, deploying shuttle pods designed to carry survivors safely onto the surface of the machine. These pods were equipped with life support systems and emergency medical supplies, designed to stabilize the weakened humans immediately. Titan 02 deployed stabilizing drones to reinforce damaged parts of the colony ship, preventing it from breaking apart during the evacuation. Titan 03 and Titan 04 created protective fields around the operation, ready to defend against any hostile entities that might approach. Every movement was precise, calculated, and deliberate. The operators knew that a single mistake could destroy the fragile colony ship and put hundreds of lives at risk. Armin followed the signals closely, decoding every pulse, guiding the operators to the safest approach paths. The SOS had given coordinates, but there were minor anomalies in the messages, possibly due to damage, energy fluctuations, or interference from the unknown attackers. Each correction Armin suggested allowed the Titans to move closer without causing stress to the ship's weakened systems. Hours passed. Slowly, survivors were transported from the colony to the protective interior of the Titans. Medical teams were waiting, preparing to provide oxygen, stabilize vital signs, and treat injuries. Each survivor was exhausted but alive, some unable to believe that they were finally safe. Marcus looked out from the cockpit of Titan 01 and watched as a young girl, no more than 12, stepped into a shuttle pod, clutching a small device that contained the last historical records of her family. She glanced up at the towering machine, tears streaming down her face, and whispered, "Thank you." Marcus swallowed hard, realizing that this was the reason the Titans had been built, not for war, but for moments like this. But as relief spread through the operation, a new alert appeared on Titan 02's sensors. Arman's voice came through quickly. "We're picking up unidentified energy signatures. Multiple targets approaching at high speed. They are heading toward the colony." Panic rippled through the command teams. The enemy that had attacked the colony generations ago, or their descendants, was following the survivors. Earth's Titans were about to face their first real combat situation since awakening. Marcus tightened his grip on the controls. "Stay calm. Defensive positions only. Protect the survivors at all costs." Lena and Darius adjusted their Titan's shields and weapon systems. Ren prepared the submersible Titan 04 to intercept any threats from water or hidden tunnels. The approaching enemy was fast and calculated, moving in perfect formation. Sensors showed that their technology was advanced, likely designed for rapid strikes and targeted destruction. Their goal was clear: they wanted to destroy the colony and prevent Earth from intervening. Titan 01 stepped forward, extending its massive shields in front of the extraction operation. The metallic frame vibrated with energy as defensive systems powered up. The operators coordinated seamlessly, moving as one unit. The first attack came suddenly, a volley of energy pulses aimed at the colony ship. Titan 02 intercepted, deploying countermeasures that deflected most of the damage. Titan 03 fired precision strikes at the attacking drones, destroying several before they could reach the survivors. Titan 04 emerged from below, striking enemy units that attempted to flank the Titans from unexpected angles. Armin's eyes widened as he watched the battle unfold through the signal feeds. Every calculation mattered. Every second could save or cost lives. The enemy was relentless, but the Titans were stronger, more resilient, and more precise than any weapon Earth had ever built. Hours of intense combat passed. The survivors, though terrified, watched in awe. Their ancestors had sent a message across the stars, and now, after generations, Earth's guardians had arrived. Slowly, the attacking forces began to retreat. Their numbers diminished, their strikes intercepted, their technology overwhelmed by the combined might of the Titans. Marcus allowed himself a brief moment of relief. The colony was secure, the survivors were safe, and the threat had been temporarily pushed back. But there was no time to celebrate. Sensors indicated that the enemy was regrouping, likely to launch another assault. The Titans prepared to move the survivors to a safer location, closer to Earth, but still far enough from immediate danger. Armin continued decoding the SOS, discovering additional fragments. The messages revealed that other lost colonies might exist, sending faint signals across the cosmos, waiting for Earth to respond. The Titans' mission had just begun. They had rescued one colony, but there might be many more. Earth's place in the universe had changed. The ancient, sleeping machines had risen to protect humanity, but now they were part of a larger story, a story of exploration, survival, and confrontation with unknown forces. As Titan 01 guided the survivors safely toward a rendezvous point for evacuation, Marcus looked at the remaining Titans, their metallic frames gleaming under distant starlight. He realized that the war machines built decades ago were no longer simply weapons. They were lifelines, bridges connecting humanity across the vast emptiness of space. Armin, watching the signals, understood the true magnitude of the moment. Earth had answered the call. Humanity had reached across the stars to save its own. The SOS that had awakened the Titans had also awakened something else: a unity, a determination, and a responsibility that would carry the species forward. As the last survivors were safely aboard the Titans, the enemy forces began a final assault. faster and more coordinated than before. The Titans responded, moving with precision, defending the evacuees and neutralizing threats. Energy beams, pulses, and explosions lit the area, but not a single survivor was harmed. It was a testament to the coordination between the operators, the planning by Earth's teams, and the raw power of the machines themselves. When the battle finally ended, the Titans stood tall, battered but unbroken. The colony survivors looked at the enormous machines with awe and gratitude. The operators felt exhausted but fulfilled. Marcus allowed himself a deep breath, knowing that this was only the beginning of Earth's engagement with the unknown. The SOS had not only brought a rescue mission but had awakened the planet's dormant power, preparing humanity for challenges far greater than anyone had anticipated. Armin watched the last signals fade from the colony, knowing that Earth had succeeded in saving its own, at least for now. But the universe was vast, and dangers lurked in the dark, waiting for the moment to challenge the rising Titans again. As the machines prepared to return to Earth for repairs and reinforcements, Marcus and the other operators realized something profound. Earth had awoken its sleeping war Titans, not for conquest, not for pride, but to protect life, to answer the SOS of its lost children, and to stand as a beacon of strength and hope in the infinite darkness of space. And somewhere deep in the cosmos, the surviving humans aboard the rescued colony looked back at the distant blue planet they had never truly seen and whispered their gratitude. Earth had answered, humanity had arrived, and the Titans were awake.